各位觀眾，歡迎收睇《時代雜誌》。依家嘅智能手提電話外形輕巧美觀，功能超卓多樣。新一代年輕人或者未親身見過舊式嘅有線電話係點樣，而好多人更加未必知道100多年前最早期嘅電話係咩模樣。到咗明年，電話呢種偉大嘅通訊工具已經誕生150週年，而且發明電話嘅人係知名嘅加拿大人貝爾。Alexander Graham Bell。今集我哋會介紹貝爾發明電話嘅故事。2004年，加拿大廣播公司選舉最偉大嘅加拿大人。貝爾因為喺1874年於加拿大發明咗電話，被評選為10大傑出加拿大人。貝爾頭上嘅光環令唔少加拿大人引以為榮。不過，貝爾呢項成就得來不易。佢嘅發明被認同及肯定，係經過漫長嘅打官司法律程序先得到勝訴。從遊覽貝爾喺安省嘅故居就可以知道當中發明電話嘅來龍去脈。李詠如報導。
通訊科技發達，電話外形亦設計得越嚟越時尚輕巧。呢種有助拉近人際距離嘅偉大科技，由已故發明家 Alexander Graham Bell 喺1874年逗留加拿大期間發明。並於1876年於美國取得專利，明年將迎嚟發明電話第150週年嘅里程碑。而為咗向呢位影響人類社會深遠嘅發明家致敬，加拿大皇家鑄幣廠喺上年 Alexander Graham Bell 175歲冥壽之際，特別發行一款印有佢頭像嘅1蚊硬幣。Alexander Graham Bell 出生於英國，後來與家人移民至加拿大。佢哋位於安省 Brantford 市嘅舊居，如今成為大眾探索呢位偉大發明家當時如何受啟發發明電話嘅博物館 Bell Homestead。更於1997年6月28號，由當時在世嘅英女王伊麗莎白二世宣布呢度為加拿大國家歷史遺址。
The Bells had made the decision to move to Canada because their son, Alexander, was 23, and they feared he was showing signs of tuberculosis. Both of his brothers had died of the illness in Scotland and England. They hoped that the much drier and cleaner air here in Canada would better his health. The first 8 months here on the farm, Alex spent with his parents, essentially helping them settle in, so that by the next spring, he was actually quite well. At that point, he was offered a teaching position with the Boston School for the Deaf. He would stay in Boston pretty much for the school year. He'd come home at Christmas time, and then he'd come home for the summers. And it was while he was here with his parents in the summer of 1874 that he invented the telephone and discovered the basic principle for the telephone.
Bell 呢個家庭移居到美國華盛頓之後，呢間屋被6次轉手，最後由 Brantford 市政部門喺1909年接管，作公開展覽。由於 Bell 家庭搬離後，屋內好多舊家私都只係流傳於社區內，所以當呢間屋轉型為博物館後，管理部門收集到當時 Alexander 媽媽同身處美國工作嘅仔往來嘅書信，並按照當中對屋企所描述嘅景象，高度還原 Bell 呢個家庭居住時候嘅裝修佈置。
The mother of the family was quite a talented artist, so this is a copy of one of her pieces. Right down by the Grand River, they had a beautiful property on the Grand River, and Alexander, her son, called that his dreaming place. He would have loved to go down to the river and think a lot as an inventor. You also see this platypus here. This is original to the Bells. Came from Australia. We guess maybe from family who came to visit and gifted it to them. We've named him Melly. He's become quite the mascot here for the Bell homesteads.
但呢啲信件並冇被收藏於故居內。不過大眾可以於美國國家圖書館網站收睇電子版信件。大宅2樓有4間房，分別由 Alexander 爸爸、媽媽以及大嫂 Caroline Ottaway 各佔1間房，另一間係客房。Caroline Ottaway 喺丈夫病逝後，與 Bell 家庭一同移居加拿大同住，及後改嫁。Julian 話：當時 Caroline 居住喺呢度嘅時候，短暫照顧過佢朋友嘅小孩。管理部門特意喺佢房內擺設一個舊式嬰兒床，以反映呢個歷史事實。可見佢哋對重現 Bell 家庭原有佈置嘅用心。而 Alexander 嘅睡房就喺1樓偏廳。Alexander 嘅媽媽係一位聽障人士，某程度上啟發 Alexander 成為聲學家，同專門教導聾啞人士嘅老師。
This is Eliza's chair, and if you notice right on her chair, it's actually her hearing trumpet. So Eliza, she lost her hearing due to an ear infection at about 13. So the hearing trumpet is really what she used to be able to understand her and communicate with everyone. So the one piece went in her ear and then people would speak to her in the other end. Now her son, Alexander, was not a fan of this hearing trumpet. He did not like speaking to his mother through it. So we ended up finding out if he pressed his lips to his mother's forehead and spoke normally, she actually understood what he was saying. So a lot of connections there, and he would have learned a lot, I'm sure, living with his mother to go on and to work with deaf students.
佢睡房嘅牆上掛滿當時所教授聲學課程嘅教目表，呢度亦係佢嘅發明小天地。
Working in Boston, he had access to different departments doing research, and so he was able to get a human ear, take it apart, and learn to understand how all of the auricular bones in the eardrum react to sound. What he learned was that as our eardrum is vibrating away, it's sending an electrical impulse to our brain that we understand as a sound. He felt that if the human ear could do that, then the telegraph should be able to do it as well. The difficulty was that the telegraph uses what's called intermittent current, which is electricity that's on and off, which is perfect for transmitting Morse code. It's not possible to transmit sound. So what he discovered here in 1874 when he was home for the summer became a form of electricity he called undulatory current. And it's a current that moves in waves, just as sound does. And with that, he was able to build his first telephone.
台上陳列出 Alexander 最初設計嘅3款舊式電話裝置。
So the first telephone you see here, this is the transmitter, and this would be the receiver, and they'd be connected through a wire. The first model didn't work for him. You could hear sounds, but you couldn't pick out any of the words that were being said. So we moved on to a second model here. Similar method, you speak into the top here and you still see the drum that would vibrate from the sound, and then through the wire, you'd hear the sound through the receiver. Now this model, he used a substance of sulfuric acid in this little metal piece here. But this transmitter and this model was used for the first successful telephone call. Now with sulfuric acid though, didn't really want to continue on with it because it's quite a dangerous substance. So we went on to make a third model, and this model was the third one here.
Alexander 嘅爸爸得到部分電話專利權後，同朋友 Thomas Philip Henderson 牧師合作開設加拿大第一間電話公司，並將 Henderson 牧師屋企設為營業廳，讓附近居民租用電話。呢間電話公司就係 Bell 電訊公司嘅前身。呢個營業廳本來位於當時 Brantford 鎮中心，後來於1969年被移至 Alexander 舊居隔離，改建為電話博物館，讓大眾於同一地點參觀電話發明起源地，以及一睹當時營業廳嘅佈置。
These are the first phones you would have actually purchased or had available. Commercial use. Yeah, and the first, remember I mentioned it was only one way. These are now, of course, you can actually have a two-way conversation. So how it works is you'd speak into this hole here, but then you'd also listen. So basically, if you and I were having a conversation, I would speak while you would have your ear to it, and then I would, once I'm finished, then I would listen while you talk to me. Keep in mind there would have been a wire, so like the sound traveled through the wire, just like the models we saw before.
電話係 Alexander Graham Bell 最為人知嘅發明，其實都為佢帶嚟唔少煩惱。不同群體對於邊個係第一個電話技術發明者都存有異議，但佢最後都能獲得勝訴。
United States at the time, a company called Western Union had a monopoly on the telegraph system. They didn't want to lose that monopoly, so they had others working for them to try and first create a harmonic telegraph, and then when the telephone came into the picture, to do exactly the same thing, to come up with a device that would transmit sound electrically. So they had a gentleman named Elisha Gray working for them who was trying to develop much the same thing that Bell was, but Elisha Gray again was coming at it with a background in electricity as opposed to a background in sound. He got to the point of being able to transmit musical tones, but not articulate speech. That led to the first patent legal battle after the telephone went into commercial use. Western Union was in fact infringing on the Bell patent. And so it went through almost 2 years of litigation and Bell won.
Alexander Graham Bell 因為其偉大嘅電話發明，於2004年由加拿大廣播公司舉辦嘅最偉大的加拿大人評選中，獲選為10大傑出加拿大人。 有人認為 Alexander 嚟自英國，呢個偉大發明應該被視為係英國人嘅貢獻。但佢本人曾經表示，佢係喺加拿大內受啟發發明出電話裝置，正係將呢個榮譽與加拿大共享。而就算 Alexander 人生大部分時間居住喺美國，致力教授聲學，但佢最後都選擇回到加拿大，喺斯高沙省度過晚年。可見呢位偉大發明家對加拿大有深厚嘅情意結。
好啦，今日節目時間又到，下星期再見。